Welcome to another episode of Caffeine and Concepts with Shilpi. Today's guest is Tricia Warren, the dynamo behind TLW Integrated Solutions LLC. With a robust 28-year track record across 7 industries, Tricia is a master of business strategy and operational excellence. She's a wizard at whipping up winning strategies in strategy development, process optimization, and data analytics, not to mention her knack for governance and change management. Tricia's superpower? Transforming complex challenges into scalable, efficient solutions, making her the go to advisor for organizations aiming for sustainable growth. And when she is not revolutionizing businesses, you can find Tricia globetrotting, designing, mastering Pilates, or indulging in a shopping spree. Ooh! Married and a proud mom of 2 boys, one embarking on his creative journey at SCAD ATL, and the other a high school senior, Tricia's life is as full and fascinating as her career is. So before we dive into the topic, Tricia, welcome. I do
Yeah.
have a question for you. What is your favorite travel destination to date?
Oh my gosh. I would say Turks and Caicos.
Oh my
Yes,
God. It
yes.
is.
We've been to so many places, but that bar none has the most beautiful beaches and water. So I would say Turks and Caicos.
I think I need to put that on my
Yes.
go-to list. Thank you for sharing that. Awesome. Our topic today is blueprints of change, mastering digital transformation in today's business landscape. I'm going to dive straight into the questions, Tricia.
Sure.
So, could you start by sharing a defining moment that sparked the need for digital transformation in your recent projects, and what was a catalyst that started this journey for you?
Absolutely. So, digital transformation always sounds like this big, grand, futuristic type concept. But really, in reality, it's simply the strategic use of technology to modernize your operations, enhance your customer experience, and also drive your business growth. So, the defining moment for me was watching a team that was drowning in spreadsheets. They had broken processes all while they were trying to streamline operations. So, it was like watching someone use like an old phone or an old pager or something when we're in smartphone territory now. It just didn't make sense to me. So leadership was very hesitant to embrace the digital change as well. They feared disruption, how it would look. And so for me, the catalyst really was around a major process flaw. It was costing the company time, money, and quite honestly, morale of the teams that were trying to implement it as well. Employees were spending so much time on manual processes, which, as you know, can be very, very daunting. When if you use automation, it could be done in minutes. So the journey for myself and this team started by identifying quick wins. We introduced automation and some AI driven analytics with the team as well. We streamlined a few of their workflows that were used often, and we also aligned leadership on the impact that what we were doing was having and how we would need to roll it out in phases versus all together. So again, we streamlined those workflows. We really significantly improved efficiency and their decision making. But I want to make sure I state this, that's the most important part of it, is that it's not just about tech. It really is about your people. No transformation will stick unless the people are actually using the tools, understanding why they're using the tools, why it matters kind of in their world, and that they feel empowered to actually adopt those tools. And to me, that's where I feel like the real magic happens when you're with the team and that aha moment they get it.
I 100% agree with everything you said, Risha, right? So, and to your point, right, it feels like when you're seeing somebody using dated technology or more or less no technology, it seems like, oh my God, it's an obvious answer that you need to transition out of this. However, and the answer seems obvious to my point, and almost like, yeah, we're going to get from point A to point B and everything will be done. However, having said that, transformation is rarely without its challenges, right? It is consistently,
Absolutely.
whether it is from pushback from people or the technology itself, or there may be other factors, that show up in your experience. Could you share a significant challenge, that you encounter, and then how did you address it, and what did it teach you and your team?
Absolutely. So I love a good transformation story, Shilpi. So let me take you through one of the projects that started as what I'm going to label a bit of a chaotic mess and then ended up with streamlined, high performing operations. So I'll kind of talk you through the stages. So you have inception, right? To me, I call that like the aha moment. I believe that every transformation starts with we can't keep doing this, but we don't quite know what to do. So for this project, it really was with a company that was struggling with outdated manual processes. Everything was slow. You had so many errors, and it was just frustrating across the board for leadership and the teams. Uh, the leadership team knew they needed digital transformation, but no one really knew where to start. So that takes me into what I call discovery. That's the deep dive. That's where you get in there, you roll up your sleeves, and I led a deep dive with them. I walked them through the workflows, the systems, and pointed out their pain points. And obviously, to no surprise, there were quite a few inefficiencies that we found. So if you think about opening up a big old drawer and it's just junky, and you think about what is going on in this drawer, how do we organize it, and how do we make it to where it's efficient and something that we can scale at the end of the day. So then that takes me into strategy, which I call a master plan. It always changes the game. And with your strategy, you bring clarity. So with that, we developed a change management strategy because that is very, very, very important in transformation. And with that, we identify the right tools. We integrate it with automation where it's possible because everything should not be automated. I know it's something that everybody's like, oh, we got to use AI, we have to automate, but everything shouldn't be automated. And so you have to have a very good strategy to understand what should. And then we just did a structured phase rollout to avoid disruption because you don't want to just drop everything on a team's plate when they're already moving. You're changing the tire as you're rolling down the street. So the key milestone for me is really around getting that buy-in because no matter what technology you use, no matter what you're looking to do in that space, if people do not adopt, it's just going to be a lot of more expensive clutter that you've spent money on. So, Shilpi, as you know, I wrote a book. It's called Excellence in Motion. And hopefully you can see that here. But Excellence in Motion is really where I talk about these sorts of things. So in chapter 1, I talk about strategic planning, why it's important. It really provides purpose-driven direction, and it must be coupled with proper execution. So let's talk about execution because that's the next phase or next step. Execution is when you're really holding your breath. You're like, I sure hope that what we did and what we built is good and it's going to work and people will adopt it. That's where the magic happens, or it could go completely off the rails. So with that, we always want to roll out in stages or in waves or whatever word you want to use for that. And then we provided hands-on training. We created quick feedback loops to address any concerns real time. So we had forms set up where people could drop in and come ask questions. And that's where I saw the turning point. During adoption is when employees really stop resisting that change and start asking, why weren't we doing this before? Why have we been killing ourselves trying to do something in this particular way without changing our mindset to say we can do it better or we can do it different? So I'll talk about this last phase, and to me, it's always about continuous improvement. And so I call it optimization, that continuous improvement mindset. Transformation, it just doesn't end at launch. It truly evolves. So we tracked KPIs, we gathered feedback, we made tweaks along the way just to ensure long-term success versus just success within that moment. And at the end of the day, the result, we had increased efficiency, we had happier employees, and we had a business that could scale without breaking any sweats or without losing any cool. And to me, that's the beauty of digital transformation overall. I'll share just one of my tidbits in the book that speaks to it's not about the technology alone. It's really about empowering your workforce or your team to be able to work smarter, not harder, which is going to foster creativity and openness within the teams.
I love that last point, Tricia. And I think with that, I think I'll segue into the human factor, right, of
Yes.
pretty much any, and the culture of any transformation. Now,
Yes.
this is a lot of companies, have adopted this culture of change is something that we do on a regular basis. We are constantly and consistently transforming, evolving, and they are able to address market disruptions, pivoting as needed. However, with all that amazing culture, there are other companies that fear change. And it may not be the
Yes.
entire company, but there's some key stakeholders within that company, or even the teams, the BU heads, business unit heads, that may
Yes.
resist change, right? And at the end of the day, it comes down to, what is the culture of the company cultivating? So
Absolutely.
in your experience, how did you go about changing that mindset? How do you, because I know it's a big question. I'm not asking how you're going to change culture, but how do you go about even addressing resistance to change?
Absolutely. That's a great, great question. So, what I hear you asking is really around how do you align the team dynamics with what you're trying to do without disrupting your culture?
Mm-hmm.
That's what I'm hearing. So, again, I address that in my book because I talk about, and if you think about, let me try to give you an example. If you think about you're with a group of people and you are trying to dance and you're trying to make sure that you stay in sync and that you know the moves and everything that you need to do, but how do you do that if you don't like the song or the tune or if someone's stepping on your toe because they're going the wrong way?
Oh, I love that example.
Yes. And I love to dance. That's why I was saying that. And I was thinking, how can I give an example of that? But I talk about that in chapter 5. And how I address it is we talk about transitioning minds. And what I call it is operational transformation of the mind. And what that is in its emotional empathy, and it's also the people factor of when you're managing change. So I'll talk a little bit about kind of a project and kind of the things that happen within that project and the culture and how the tech was involved in that. So one thing that kind of stands out in my mind is we were implementing a new data analytics platform. I love data. And so on paper, it looked great. It looked easy to implement. It made perfect sense. It had real time insights. We had automation built in there, and we felt like, okay, this is it. It's bells and whistles, and this is it. But one big problem, the team had no desire to use it. And once it was built, they weren't using it. And so at first, the leaders were saying, hey, it's a training issue. We didn't train them well enough. But I looked back and I thought, no, the training is good and it's on point. It's a trust issue here. And when you have a trust issue, when you're trying to implement big change, it can be a complete bottleneck. So the people felt like the system was going to be used to micromanage them or to monitor them. And so obviously that led them to a point where they didn't feel like, okay, this is not something I want to use because who wants to be monitored? Who wants to be monitored? And so with that, I had to shift my lens and say, okay, I know this technology, I've been hired to do this transformation from a tech perspective, but this culture, we need to focus on the culture first. So what I did was I used AI sentiment analysis. And what that does is it just gauges an employee's readiness for change. If you think about it, change impact assessment. We used to do it in Excel. Now you can do it AI driven. And so with that, it's one of the most effective ways to align a team is to make sure that you involve them and you involve them early and you involve them often. That's how you show that empathy. And you are able to address their concerns and create a culture of collaboration rather than kind of this resistance. And so, what I would say is you should ask yourself two questions. Whenever you're doing a big transformation and it's going to affect your culture because all change affects culture, you want to ask yourself two questions. Not only does the tech work, but do the people believe in it? Because if any software, it doesn't matter, cannot fix the people factor when you're talking about culture and change and just getting people on board to adopt what you're trying to do.
I love that point, and I love the use of AI. Sentiment analysis
Yes.
is, it's just become, you're right, it has become a trend in the last few years. I've seen this with a ton of analytics that are being generated, not only for marketing purposes, but to understand your customer base. And in this, digital transformation, your customer base is internal. And so understanding that on a regular basis throughout that journey, and for the transformation to remain or to stick, I should say,
Yes.
it is essential to recognize that. And I do not know this question. I'll have a follow-up question on this one, right? So,
Sure.
once the transformation was complete, did the team or did the company continue to monitor, the changes and the stickiness?
Yes, absolutely. And that's just called, like, people think adoption is a one-time thing. Adoption is something that you work at and you're constantly reinforcing and you're constantly coming back to train and reiterate. So, yes, they did. So, the outcome of that is buy-in. It's not just being compliant. So, I think this is a critical point. People, you can force people to be compliant, but you can't force people to buy in. You have to influence them to buy into what you're doing. And that's why I talked about a little bit earlier, taking them on the journey with you. That's very important. So at the end, morale spiked, adoption spiked, because the employees went from resenting the change, the monitoring of what they were doing, to owning it and saying, hey, we do need to monitor in these areas to not only ensure that we're compliant, but to ensure we're in sync as a team and that we're operating from the strategy with one vision and one purpose moving forward. So you cannot align culture after the fact. It has to be a part of your strategy day one.
Yes, and I hope everyone out there is listening to that point, because I feel like change management is a lot of companies, not everybody, think
Yes.
of after the fact, or at least towards the
Yes.
latter part of the transformation. So I'm happy you made this point, Tricia. So pivoting a little bit, right? So digital transformation, right, is typically done across multiple business units, across multiple teams, functions, so on and so forth, right? And cross-functional, and we already know this, but cross-functional collaboration tends to be limited. And most firms have started using, I guess, cohesive, or I should say, a centralized platform or set of technologies that are used across the various functions and teams. Would you dive into that a little bit, Tricia, as to what are some of the platforms, technologies that you used with the internal team to ensure that everybody who was under the digital transformation umbrella was using that and had access to everything that was going on?
Absolutely. So we use different tools. A lot of them are homegrown because when you walk into a company, a lot of people versus investing into some of those big products and big technology, they just build what they need so that they can customize it in the way that they can. So a lot of things that I've seen are AI driven or powered automation. So if you think about where you take away those repetitive tasks, so you set up a where you're able to have a platform where people are able to go in and see the same tasks or be assigned particular tasks to themselves, that you do in workflow, you do that in a tool, and they're able to see, okay, this is assigned to me. What do I need to do with this? And then where does it go downstream? How does what I'm doing affect what the people downstream need to do as well? So any tool you use, you need to be integrated across your tools and across your platforms. That's a game changer. Because when you think about data, which is what you're using to make your decisions on a day to day basis, if you have disparate data in siloed tools, and this tool may have one data set and one may have another, then you're not really showing the teams what they need, all of the information in one place. So, integration of your platforms and tools for sure. And we use typical things like, I'm not sure if you've heard of the tool Notion, where you can go in there and everyone is able to use that and be on the same page. You can assign. And so it's a very nifty tool and very simple and free on the internet to use. So when you think tools, you don't have to necessarily think grandiose. Technology is the enabler to transformation. Strategy and people are the driver. And so think integrated tools, think normal everyday tools, think CRMs where you're able to have that data in the same place and everyone will be able to use it. Think data warehouses, that is still out there and very real. Data lakes, there are all sorts of names for these places where you have that data come together and you're able to push that data out to tools and use them on different platforms, but you're working from the same sets as well. Integration is very, very key.
I have a in my history of digital transformation and running those programs, I remember using Excel, and this is back in the day. I
Yes.
was using Excel.
Those are those spreadsheets, Shilpi.
I know. We moved to SharePoint,
Yes.
the collaboration team
Yes.
collaboration happen, and then I think in my latest or the last one was Azure DevOps, which
Yes.
kind of formalized and structured the methodology also that we ended up using, which was Agile. But speaking of Notion.ai, oh my God, I have used that tool. It is, to your point, a very versatile tool, and
Very
it
good.
is free, and there
Yes.
is a lot of capability that it has, from an AI perspective. It generates a lot of things as well, as
Yes.
far as insights are concerned with the content that you're putting in.
Yes.
For anybody out there who
Yes.
has not looked at it, take a look at it, and even if you're using it for your home project management, I would recommend doing that. So,
Absolutely.
all right. So this is a question that I had put out to an audience earlier. I know this is not a live session, but what is your most unexpected insight from all the experiences that you have had throughout the years within digital transformation? What is something that it was an anomaly almost for you?
So I think for me, I'm going to go back to that people aspect, and you talk about people resisting change. They don't resist change because they don't want to improve. Because in your mind, you're thinking, this is going to help you. It's going to help you be more efficient. So why are you fighting this? It's not that they're fighting the fact that they want to improve, but they're afraid of what they may lose if they begin to if they begin to come apart or come under the umbrella of this change or transformation. So it might sound obvious, but I know that during the time that I've been in corporate and the time that I've worked, I've learned the hard way that during digital transformation, you roll out these sleek pieces of technology or systems and tools and processes, and everybody's excited about it. The system may be advanced, and on paper, it's going to revolutionize your business. You will be it after you do these tools. But then again, you have to get that buy in from the inside. So you've set all that up perfectly. but your people aren't on board. And so there's pushback. And when you have pushback from people, it's again, it's not just that reluctance to improvement, it's what is this doing to me? Is this going to affect my job? What does this mean for me long term? Will a tool or a system or a new technology come in and replace me? And so you have to think about that and address the emotional side. So instead of pushing forward with the agenda of training and, oh, we have to get it out there, you have to take a step back and you have to talk to your people and you have to treat them like humans and recognize that there is that human side of digital transformation. So you acknowledge their fears. I talk about this in the book as well. You have to acknowledge the things that are going through your employees' minds, and you need to slow down and think about it and understand how it's affecting them. Because not only when it affects the employee, it affects the customer because your employees are working with your customers as well. So you cannot forget about the people. You have to know that change is not just technical, it is deeply emotional. Some people take changes if you are really uprooting something that they feel like they've perfected or something that they feel like they own. And so you really have to be particular about this. So my key statement that I'll land on here is don't just focus on how to get people to use your technology that you've built. Focus on how to get them to truly embrace it, and not only embrace it, understand what they'll gain from it and ease their fear about what they may lose. There's no loss, it's only gain.
Yeah, yeah. And it's a very crucial point that you just made, Tricia, especially right now. I think with AI becoming that technology that a lot of folks are scared of, because there is a lot of chatter on both sides of the spectrum, as in this is going to take away our jobs, or no, this
Yes.
is going to enhance our jobs, or there's so much fear of the unknown. And I would advise everybody, get yourself familiar with it.
Yes.
ChatGPT, it's a free, not a subscription, but it's free for your basic exposure. Get
Yeah.
out there and just get acclimated to it. So it's not as big a deal as it seems like it if you've never used it. And I'm attesting to
Absolutely.
that. I was very nervous a few years ago, but having started using it, I recognize it is only going to enhance
Yes.
my skill set that I already have. So
Absolutely.
I am definitely kind of aligned with what you just mentioned, Trisha. Awesome.
Absolutely.
Our next set of questions, this is going to be a fun one, Trisha. This is like a
Okay.
rapid fire round. So I'm going to
Okay.
ask you a few questions
Okay.
and you tell me what comes to mind as I ask them. All right. And this doesn't have to do anything with your work. So, feel free to expand whatever you want to do on these answers. Okay.
Okay.
What's the one app you cannot live without?
Okay, so there's two, and they are not business related at all. I would say my music apps because they are therapeutic. Sometimes I like a slow, groove. Sometimes I listen to gospel. Other times I'm listening to something to get me amped up. So music for me is therapeutic. So my music apps, and then Waze. I cannot get anywhere without Waze. It's like I think about efficiency in everything. And I'm thinking, I need ways because I don't need to be lost wasting time. So those are my two. Music and Ways are my two apps.
I think I'm totally resonating with that. I didn't even think about a GPS app, but you're 100% right. Like before, it used to be, hey, it's the corner of blah 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 building, or it's
Yes,
the corner of that particular lamppost, and now you can go anywhere in the world, doesn't matter, and you can get around because you have
absolutely.
amazing app that
No more maps.
now. My God, do you remember those days when you
Yes,
opened
the
up those
paper map.
mass? What? Oh my God, I remember going to AAA for those maps prior to any trip and
Yes,
sitting there looking at, oh no, no, go left, no, the other left.
exactly.
So I hear you. Oh, I love that. I love that. Awesome. Next one. What is the best piece of advice that you have ever received?
I would say it's own the room. Be yourself. Do not dim your light for anyone. Early in my career, I was reminded about confidence. Uh, it's not about being the loudest in the room, even though I am pretty loud, but it's about standing firm once you get to that table and once you're able to get that opportunity. I've really carried that with myself because as women, we have to show up bold. We have to show up confident. We have to show up because we're competing in a room of our colleagues and peers that may not look like us. And so it's very important to know who you are, keep your head up, be very authentic, smile a little. It's okay to joke around. It doesn't always have to be so rigid and just strictly about business because we are humans and people first. That's why we talked about that human factor. And that's important. So keep your head up, walk as if you're empowered, uplift others because there's enough success to go around for everyone. So no one has to sit in a corner and feel as if, this person is, doing more than me. But just be yourself, be honest, be bold, trust the right people, and know your value.
Oh, I love that. I love that, Tricia. I think I need to be taking that a little bit more. I have started that journey, but I think every now and then I tend to forget, that okay, it is okay for you to be speaking your mind. You do not need to be censoring the things that you are bringing to the table. I will add one more thing to that,
Yes.
is take risks. We and maybe I'm speaking more as a woman. I think we as women tend not to take as many risks because we are consistently and constantly told by society that this is what you should look like, this is the
Yep.
box you need to exist in. To your
Absolutely.
point, be bold, take the risk to get out there, and even if it's uncomfortable, you
That's
may be
right.
surprised at how you end up evolving a completely different side of you, and you become a
Absolutely.
different person with that risk. So
Absolutely.
I love that advice. That advice. Thank you. All right.
Absolutely.
Last question. If you could
Yes.
have dinner with any innovative pioneer, who would it be and why?
So I'm going to go completely off the cuff. Um, but this particular individual, Pharrell Williams, he's a music mogul. He's an entrepreneur. He's a designer. He's currently working with Louis Vuitton. And he has been able to master and leverage his creative genius and marry that to his entrepreneurship. He's been innovative in fashion, which I love too, and business ventures. And he's the most supportive and uplifting person when you hear him talking and you see him on different shows, how he's uplifting other people. But to me, he's pushed the boundaries on music, fashion, turning his brand into multifaceted businesses. And to me, he has really shown how that creative brain can be with that business brain and it can lead to innovation. And so I am a creative at heart, but I'm also a businesswoman. And I would struggle with the two because sometimes you feel like, oh, I have to only focus on this thing or, oh, I can only be this way. But I found that to be authentic and to be your authentic self, you have to marry all of your talents together. And so that's why I would say I would want to sit down and talk to him because he just seems he's very laid back. He's always chill when you see him on shows and stuff, and he's always giving encouraging words and leaving it, dropping a gem and really leaving it there. So that's kind of what I want to find out. How do you do more of that? How do you support people, still be successful, in what you're doing, still be business minded, still massage your creative brain, but come up and show up as this whole person? So he would be someone I would love to sit down.
Wow, I unfortunately and ignorantly do not know who that is.
That's
That is going to
okay.
be on my to-do list of
Yes.
looking up who that is. And for our listeners, I'll put that name at the bottom of our podcast recording, so you have an idea too, and look him up. Awesome. Thank you,
Absolutely.
Tricia. Thank you for that.
Yes.
Awesome. All right. So wrapping up now. So, what do you want to leave our listeners with? What are the key takeaways, not only to our listeners, but to leaders out there who are running and leading digital transformation and the folks who are typically involved in this transformation journey? What are the things that you want to, some thoughts that you want to lead them with?
Sure. So, one of the things I'll say is start with strategy. You've heard me talk about that a little bit throughout the conversation, but start with strategy. Focus on your people and leverage your technology wisely. Transformation, you must remember, it's a journey, it's not a sprint. So it's easy to get caught up in the excitement of the new sexy tools that you're implementing and using, but the real success, I cannot stress this more, comes from understanding that it's a continuous process, not a one-time event, and you must be plugged into your people. So for leaders, you're out there, you're ready to embark on your own digital transformation journey. Again, start with those people. Technology is going to be there, and be all in with your teams. Now, one other thing that I want to say is that you must make sure with your teams that you invest in trust with them. Make sure that you're communicating clearly. You're being transparent. If you're stuck and you're the leader, you're like, you know what? I don't know what the next step is, but let's figure it out together. That's okay. Be vulnerable, because you're going to be in these sessions with your teams where they have to trust you. You have to be clear in what you're saying, and you're going to want to touch them or train them often, not just when it's implemented. I've seen a lot of people do this. They'll implement this big technology, they'll have this whole transformation journey, and then they just drop it. It's a continuous thing. So think about continuous improvement. Even though you've done this transformation, technology moves on. Something else is new out there. What are you missing that's out there that you now may need to plug into what you've just built? So it's really important. Listen to your people's feedback. They're using the tools and services every day. Listen to them, adapt to them, engage with them. And so to me, the real magic really happens when your technology amplifies your human potential. If you can get your people aligned and your vision and they understand it and bring them along and you're all in the boat together, the tech is just going to accelerate it. So that's what I'll leave.
Thank you, Tricia. And I cannot even start to list out the amazing wisdom nuggets that you have thrown out today. The two things that I'm going to take personally, that stay with me, is be bold and focus on people, focus on the human factor, the trust aspect of things. So thank you so much for your time, Tricia, and it was a pleasure speaking with you. Hopefully the next time we are going to be talking specifically about the be bold part.
Absolutely. I would love to come back. Thank you so much for having me, Shilpi. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.